The day began like any other on Earth. Cities were loud with traffic, screens glowed with news and games, and people rushed to school and work. The sky was clear and blue, calm and familiar. No one felt danger. No one felt fear. Then, without warning, the light changed. Shadows stretched across streets and fields as if the sun itself had grown afraid. People looked up together, confused, blinking against the sudden dark. High above the clouds, something massive moved into place. It was not one ship, but many. Long shapes like steel mountains drifted across the sky, silent and slow. They blocked the sun and turned day into a deep gray dusk. Phones came out. Cameras pointed upward. At first, many thought it was a trick, a movie promotion, or a strange weather event. But the ships did not fade. They stayed. And more arrived. Across the world, the same sight appeared. From deserts to oceans, from quiet villages to crowded cities, the sky filled with alien metal. News channels broke into every screen. Anchors struggled to speak. Satellites sent images of fleets so large they curved with the planet. Experts whispered words like invasion and extinction. Old memories of stories and fears returned. This was the moment many had imagined for years, the moment that was supposed to end everything. Then the message came. Every screen went black for a second. Then white symbols appeared, sharp and cold. A voice followed, calm and strong, speaking perfect human languages all at once. This world is now under the authority of the Galactic Fleet. You will not resist. You will not hide. Surrender, and you may survive. The voice did not shout. It did not threaten loudly. It did not need to. It spoke like a ruler who already owned the room. Silence spread across Earth. Not screaming. Not chaos. Just silence. Trains slowed. Cars stopped. People stood still, eyes fixed on the sky or the screens. For a few long seconds, the world held its breath. The aliens waited. They had seen this before. On many worlds, this was the moment of panic. Governments fell. Armies rushed. Cities burned. Fear was the key that opened every door. But Earth did not move as expected. In one city, a man laughed. It was a short laugh, surprised, almost tired. In another place, a woman shook her head and smiled. Somewhere else, a group of students stared at the sky and started recording a video, joking about how the ships blocked their signal. Online, messages began to spread. Not prayers. Not cries for help. Jokes. Memes. Questions. Someone wrote, "Are they serious?" Another replied, "They came all this way for this?" The alien commanders watched the data streams with growing confusion. Their sensors showed no mass military launch. No sudden energy spikes. No panic signals. Instead, human networks grew louder with noise that made no sense to them. Laughter. Music. Images of humans waving at the sky. Children drew pictures of the ships and shared them. A famous talk show went live and asked viewers to rate the ship's design. Inside the largest alien vessel, the fleet leader studied the planet again. He had crushed worlds stronger than this one. He had watched civilizations beg and break. Earth was young by galactic standards. Divided. Loud. Full of conflict. Fear should have been easy. Yet fear was not spreading. Something else was moving instead, something slow and steady, like a deep breath after a long wait. Governments on Earth met in emergency rooms, but their voices were calm. Leaders spoke carefully, choosing words that did not shake. Military systems powered up, but quietly, like machines waking from sleep, not rushing into battle. Scientists checked readings and shared data freely. No one claimed control. No one shouted orders. It was as if the planet itself had agreed to stay still and watch. Minutes passed. Then more. The alien fleet sent a second message, sharper this time. Your lack of response will be taken as defiance. The words were meant to cut. To force action. To create fear where none had appeared. The aliens waited again. On Earth, a global broadcast began, not from a government, but from a public network. The host looked straight into the camera. Behind him, the shadow of the ships crossed the city skyline. He smiled, just a little. "Looks like we have guests," he said. "Give us a moment." That moment stretched. The aliens watched humans talk among themselves. They saw charts, calm faces, small laughs. They heard no cries. Their models failed. Their predictions broke. The fleet leader felt something new rise in his chest, something he did not like. Uncertainty. Then it happened. A short clip went viral across the planet and beyond. It showed a group of humans standing on a rooftop, the alien ships hanging above them like silent gods. One human looked up, shaded his eyes, and laughed. Not loud. Not wild. Just a simple laugh, like someone hearing an old joke. He turned to the camera and said, "They really think this will scare us." That laugh spread faster than fear ever could. Across Earth, people laughed together. Not because they thought they would win easily. Not because they believed they were safe. They laughed because this moment felt familiar. Because they had faced worse and kept going. Because fear had tried to rule them before and failed. The aliens had come expecting screams. What they found instead was a world that smiled, looked up, and waited. High above, the galactic fleet drifted in silence. For the first time in many conquests, they did not know what came next. The alien fleet remained motionless above Earth, their ships hanging in perfect formation as if frozen in time. Inside the command vessels, screens filled with human signals, voices, images, and data streams moving faster than expected. The aliens had planned for screams, for riots, for desperate military moves. Instead, they saw humans talking, laughing, and arguing about small things while the sky above them was filled with unknown warships. This reaction did not fit any record the fleet possessed. On the bridge of the flagship, the fleet commander watched a live feed from Earth. A group of humans stood in a public square, pointing up at the ships. Some recorded videos. Others waved. One man pretended to shield his eyes like a tourist looking at a tall building. The commander felt irritation rise. This was not respect. This was not fear. This was something else, something uncomfortable. He ordered his officers to analyze the human emotional state again. The answer came back the same. Calm. Humor. Curiosity. Low panic. Far beyond Earth, in the center of known space, the Galactic Council received the live transmission. Ancient beings from dozens of worlds watched silently as the human planet filled their screens. Many had heard of Earth only as a minor world, noisy and divided, not worth attention. Others remembered old warnings, vague notes buried deep in archives. Now those warnings felt heavier. The Council expected to see a quick surrender. Instead, they saw confusion spreading through the fleet itself. One council member spoke at last. "Why are they not afraid?" Another replied, "Perhaps they do not understand the threat." This idea brought some comfort. Fear usually came after understanding. But minutes passed, and human understanding clearly grew. News experts explained the alien technology in simple words. Teachers spoke calmly to students. Parents answered questions without panic. Humans were not confused. They were aware. And still, they did not break. Back on Earth, social networks exploded with activity. Not cries for help, but jokes and strange calm discussions. Someone posted a message saying, "If this is the end, at least the timing is interesting." Another replied, "Relax. Let's see what they want first." Videos appeared showing pets staring at the sky, children asking if aliens like music, artists sketching the ships in real time. Fear tried to rise, but it was pushed down by something stronger, something steady. The Alien Science Division worked without pause. They searched for signs of hidden weapons, secret alliances, unknown energy sources. They found many defenses, yes, but nothing that explained this reaction. Humans should have been afraid. Every other species had been. Fear was universal. Fear was simple. Yet Earth did not follow the rule. One scientist quietly suggested that humans might be broken, emotionally damaged by their own history. The idea was logged, but it explained nothing. The fleet commander sent another order. Increase presence. More ships moved into orbit, their shadows covering the planet completely. The sky darkened further. This display had crushed resistance on 100 worlds. On Earth, people adjusted their screens for lower light. Street lamps turned on early. Life continued. The commander clenched his hands. Power was supposed to speak without words. Earth was not listening. In the Galactic Council chamber, tension grew. Some members leaned closer to their screens. Others whispered among themselves. They saw humans doing something strange. Humans were waiting. Not hiding. Not attacking. Waiting. As if they expected something from the fleet. As if the aliens were late to a meeting only the humans understood. This idea disturbed the older council members most of all. A new human broadcast spread across Earth and into space. It was not a leader or a soldier. It was a scientist, gray-haired, calm, speaking slowly. He explained what was known and what was not. He asked people to stay observant, not afraid. "Fear makes us blind," he said. "Curiosity keeps us alive." The message was shared millions of times. The alien translators flagged the phrase. "Fear makes us blind." This was not how conquered species spoke. Inside one alien ship, a junior officer finally asked the question many feared. What if fear does not work on them? The room went quiet. No one answered at first. Fear had always worked. Fear was the first weapon, the strongest one. Without it, every plan changed. The fleet commander looked again at Earth, at the lights of cities glowing under the dark sky. He felt a strange pressure, like standing at the edge of something unseen. On Earth, people felt that pressure too, but they named it differently. They called it attention. They watched the sky. They talked. They waited. Some laughed, yes, but not because they thought this was a joke. They laughed because they refused to give fear what it wanted. The alien fleet had come to rule through terror. What it found instead was a world that looked back without shaking. As the hours passed, the galaxy continued to watch. No invasion began. No surrender followed. Between Earth and the stars, a quiet question grew louder with every passing moment. If humans were not afraid, then what were they prepared for? The alien fleet shifted from waiting to studying. Sensors focused on Earth with full power, pulling data from every signal, every movement, every machine. The science division believed the answer had to be hidden somewhere in numbers. Humans were small, soft, and divided. Their cities were fragile. Their weapons were loud but limited. By all logic, fear should have already spread like fire. The aliens believed the calm was only a delay, a misunderstanding that could be corrected with deeper analysis. They began by scanning human history. Wars filled the records, more than any species the fleet had ever studied. Humans fought each other often and with great effort. Entire cities had been destroyed by humans themselves. The alien analysts nodded at this. This explained weakness. A species that harmed itself so often could not stand against a galactic power. The analysts marked humans as unstable, emotional, and self-destructive. This conclusion felt safe and familiar. Next, they studied human weapons. Missiles, aircraft, ships, satellites, nuclear devices. Dangerous, yes, but crude compared to galactic technology. The aliens simulated thousands of invasion paths and found no serious threat. Human defenses could slow an attack, but not stop it. The science division relaxed slightly. Fear had to come once humans understood the scale of what faced them. The laughter would end. The silence would break. But the data from Earth refused to change. Emotional readings stayed steady. Panic spikes appeared in small places but faded quickly. Communication between humans increased, not in anger or fear, but in coordination. They shared information freely, even between rival nations. The aliens marked this as temporary. Stress often created brief unity before collapse. The fleet had seen it many times before. The commander ordered a psychological pressure test. A controlled display of force. One ship moved closer to the atmosphere and released a burst of energy, bright and visible across half the planet. It did not strike Earth. It was only a warning, a reminder of power. On conquered worlds, this always worked. Populations screamed. Leaders begged. Resistance died. On Earth, people watched the light in the sky. Some gasped. Some fell silent. Then the reactions changed. Scientists explained what the energy was and what it was not. News hosts reminded viewers that the planet was unharmed. Online, people compared the display to fireworks. Fear tried to rise again and failed again. The aliens marked the test as inconclusive. The science division turned to culture. They watched human stories, movies, and books. They saw endless tales of invasion, disaster, and survival. Humans imagined losing often, but they also imagined fighting back. They imagined clever escapes, last stands, and quiet victories. The aliens misunderstood this. They believed these stories were fantasies, a way to cope with fear. They did not understand that humans use stories to train their minds, to prepare emotionally for worst outcomes. An alien psychologist suggested a theory. Humans laughed because they were in shock. Laughter was a sign of mental overload. Soon, fear would arrive, stronger than before. The theory was approved and shared with command. It made sense. Shock always came first. The fleet decided to wait a little longer. While the aliens waited, humans continued preparing, but not in ways the fleet expected. Military units stood ready, but did not launch. Scientists adjusted systems quietly. Engineers checked networks and backups. Civilians were asked to stay informed, not afraid. The message was simple and repeated often. Stay calm. Stay aware. Stay human. The aliens noticed something else that worried them, though they did not name it clearly. Humans did not rush. They did not act like prey. They acted like observers. Like judges. It felt as if Earth was watching the fleet as carefully as the fleet watched Earth. This made some officers uneasy. Prey did not usually watch back. To regain control, the commander ordered preparation for a limited strike. Not to destroy Earth, but to break its spirit. A single location, chosen carefully, would feel the fleet's power. The science division selected a remote area, far from major populations, believing the fear would still spread across the planet. The order moved through the fleet quietly. Before the strike could begin, something unexpected happened. Earth's global communication networks shifted. Not shut down. Not attacked. Adjusted. Alien sensors struggled briefly, then stabilized. Humans had not blocked the fleet. They had simply changed how they spoke to each other. The fleet still listened, but the meaning was harder to read. This was noted as strange but not dangerous. The aliens concluded their final report. Humans were brave but weak. Calm but unprepared. Intelligent but limited. Fear would come. Resistance would break. The fleet commander accepted the report. He looked once more at the planet below, blue and bright beneath the shadow of his ships. He believed he understood humans now. He was wrong. The alien fleet prepared for the limited strike with perfect confidence. Power flowed through their weapons, controlled and precise. This was not meant to destroy Earth, only to remind its people of reality. Fear was the goal, not fire. The commander watched the target area on his screen, a wide empty region far from cities, chosen to send a message without creating sympathy. He believed this single action would end the strange calm and restore order. On Earth, sensors detected the energy buildup long before the strike began. Scientists shared the data instantly across global networks. The numbers were clear. Something was coming, but not at full power. Military leaders listened carefully and made no sudden moves. Civilians were informed in simple terms. There was no order to panic. There was no call to run. People were told to observe. The alien weapon fired. A focused wave of energy crossed space and touched the upper atmosphere above the target zone. The sky flashed bright white, then faded into blue again. No ground was broken. No fire fell. The strike was clean and controlled, exactly as planned. On alien ships, officers waited for the reaction they knew so well. On Earth, people watched the sky glow and return to normal. There was a pause, longer than before. This time, no laughter came at once. The silence felt heavier. The aliens leaned forward, sensing the moment they had waited for. Fear should have arrived now. Instead, Earth responded with calm movement. Research stations confirmed no damage. Weather systems returned to normal. Wildlife sensors showed no disruption. Scientists spoke clearly and explained what had happened and what had not. It was a warning, one expert said. Not an attack. The words spread fast. Relief followed, but not fear. The fleet commander frowned. He ordered a scan of alien systems. Everything was stable. The strike had been perfect. The fault could not be technical. He looked back at Earth and noticed something new. Human military satellites had shifted position slightly, not aggressively, but smoothly, like pieces moving into place on a board. The movement was careful, measured, and quiet. Then something strange happened. Several alien ships reported minor system delays. Nothing serious. Just brief interruptions in navigation data and internal clocks. The science division dismissed it as coincidence. Space was complex. Small errors happened. Still, the reports continued, spreading slowly across the fleet. On Earth, a calm voice addressed the world again. It was not loud or proud. It did not threaten. "We saw your warning," the speaker said. "Thank you for showing restraint." The phrase confused alien translators. "Thank you was not expected." The message continued. "Please understand that actions like this do not help communication." Inside the flagship, officers exchanged looks. Communication. This was not a negotiation. This was domination. The commander felt irritation sharpen into anger. He ordered another display, stronger this time, closer to the planet. Before the order could be fully carried out, alerts appeared across the bridge. Navigation errors increased. Power distribution showed strange delays. Not failures, just pauses, as if systems were waiting for permission that never came. The fleet commander demanded answers. Engineers worked fast, voices tight with confusion. They found no attack signatures. No weapons fire. No energy beams. The fleet was not under assault. On Earth, engineers watched their own screens with focus and control. Systems activated that had never been used before, tools built quietly over decades. These systems did not strike outward. They adjusted space around Earth in small, careful ways, like tuning an instrument. The goal was not damage. It was control. The alien fleet felt it before it understood it. Ships did not move exactly as commanded. Small course changes took longer than expected. Signals between vessels lagged by fractions of a second. In battle, such delays could be fatal. Panic began to rise among junior officers. Senior commanders ordered calm, but their voices lacked certainty. The fleet commander demanded a full explanation. A science officer finally spoke the words no one wanted to hear. "They are not attacking us," he said. "They are managing us." The room went silent. Managing was not a word used for enemies. It was used for environments, for systems, for traffic. Another message came from Earth, calm and clear. "Please do not attempt further demonstrations," the speaker said. "You are currently within controlled space." The alien translators worked again, slower this time, checking meaning. Controlled space. The phrase echoed across the bridge. The commander felt a cold weight settle in his chest. He had faced rebellion before. He had crushed resistance. This was different. Earth was not fighting. It was setting rules. He ordered the fleet to pull back slightly. The command moved through the ships, but the movement was slow, limited, guided along paths the fleet had not chosen. On Earth, no one celebrated. No cheers rose. People continued watching, waiting, focused. The first shock had passed, not through fear, but through understanding. The aliens had tried to scare humanity. Instead, they had learned something far more dangerous. Earth was not helpless, and it had not yet shown its full hand. The alien fleet drifted above Earth in uneasy silence, their movements slow and careful now. Inside their ships, fear had begun to appear, but not on the planet below. On Earth, people continued to work, talk, and watch the sky with steady eyes. The reason for this calm did not come from a single leader or secret weapon. It came from something deeper, something built slowly over time. Humans were not fearless. They were experienced. Human history was full of disasters. Wars that burned cities. Diseases that killed millions. storms that erased coastlines, machines that almost escaped control. Again and again, humans had faced events that were supposed to end them. Each time, fear came first. And each time, fear failed to finish the job. Humans learned from this. They learned that fear made mistakes. It rushed. It blinded. It broke trust. Survival came from another place. Generations had grown up hearing stories of near endings. Not heroic lies, but real events. Humans remembered how close they had come to collapse. They remembered how cooperation, patience, and stubborn hope had carried them through. Over time, this memory shaped them. When danger appeared, fear still knocked, but it was no longer in charge. Humans had learned to let it wait outside. The alien fleet studied Earth's calm and called it weakness. They did not understand that humans had already faced something worse than invasion. Humans had faced themselves. They had seen what hate, panic, and power could do when unchecked. They had survived their own mistakes. Compared to that, an alien threat felt familiar. Another test. Another problem to solve. On Earth, scientists spoke openly about this on public channels. They reminded people that fear was natural, but it did not have to decide actions. Teachers explained this to students in simple words. Being scared is okay, they said. Letting fear control you is not. This message spread quietly, not as a command, but as shared understanding. The aliens searched for a central control point, a leader who held Earth together. They found none. Governments existed, but they did not dominate the moment. Decisions flowed through networks, not thrones. Humans argued, disagreed, and debated, but they shared information freely. The aliens had crushed many worlds by breaking their leaders. Earth had no single neck to snap. The fleet commander reviewed old human records again, this time focusing on recovery, not war. He saw cities rebuilt after destruction. He saw nations cooperate after disaster. He saw rivals share knowledge when survival demanded it. This confused him. Strength, in his experience, came from control and fear. Human strength seemed to come from something less solid but more reliable. On Earth, quiet preparations continued. Defense systems adjusted space and energy fields, not to attack, but to protect. Engineers worked in teams that crossed borders and old rivalries. They spoke in clear, simple language. No secrets. No pride. Just function. The aliens could see these movements, but they misunderstood their purpose. They thought humans were still afraid to act. In truth, humans were choosing when to act. They had learned patience the hard way. Rushing had cost them lives before. Waiting, watching, and understanding had saved them. The alien fleet was powerful, but it was also new to this situation. Humans knew that the first move made in fear was often the worst one. A quiet message spread among Earth's networks, not as an order, but as a shared thought. They want us scared. People understood. The idea was simple and powerful. Fear was the enemy's tool. If they refused to give it, the enemy lost control. This was not bravery. It was discipline. The alien commander finally spoke to the Galactic Council again. His tone was less certain now. The humans do not respond as expected, he said. Their fear response is delayed or controlled. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. Old records resurfaced, fragments of warnings long ignored. A species that could manage fear was unpredictable. On Earth, a child asked a simple question during a live broadcast. If they are so strong, why are they trying so hard to scare us? The question spread quickly. Adults smiled sadly at its truth. Power that needed fear to function was fragile. Humans had learned that lesson early in their history. The alien fleet waited, trying to decide their next move. They believed they were facing a calm before collapse. They did not yet understand that this calm was the result of long experience. Humans were not calm because they felt safe. They were calm because they knew fear too well to trust it again. The first signs of panic appeared quietly inside the alien fleet, hidden behind orders and reports, but impossible to stop. Ships followed commands more slowly. Officers asked the same questions twice. The calm confidence that had guided countless invasions began to crack. The fleet had expected fear from Earth. Instead, fear was spreading among the invaders themselves. The commander ordered a full systems check across all vessels. Engineers reported no damage, no attacks, no clear enemy action. Yet navigation delays continued. Communication lagged in strange patterns, not random, but smooth and controlled. It felt as if the fleet was moving through thick water instead of open space. This was not a battlefield. It was an environment they did not control. On Earth, the adjustments continued without noise. Human systems did not push, strike, or threaten. They shaped the space around the planet carefully, maintaining balance. Scientists monitored every change, ready to reverse if needed. The goal was stability, not dominance. To the aliens, this restraint was more frightening than open attack. Junior officers began whispering among themselves. Some had served in dozens of conquests. None had seen this before. Usually, the moment of hesitation belonged to the weaker side. Now the hesitation was theirs. They watched Earth's steady lights below and felt exposed. The planet did not rush to finish them. It let them sit in uncertainty. The commander attempted to restore authority. He ordered the fleet to tighten formation and prepare for withdrawal if needed. The command traveled through the network, but the response was uneven. Some ships adjusted easily. Others moved as if guided along invisible paths. The commander realized with growing unease that the fleet no longer chose its own positioning completely. Across the galaxy, observers noticed the change. The Galactic Council watched the fleet's movements slow and grow cautious. This was unheard of. The Galactic Fleet did not hesitate. It overwhelmed. Council members exchanged worried signals. Old archives were opened again. Stories once dismissed as myths were re-examined. On Earth, people noticed the shift as well. News experts pointed out the slower movements of the ships. Social networks filled with calm analysis. "They are unsure," someone wrote. Another replied, "That means they are listening now." There was no celebration, only careful attention. Humans knew that panic could be as dangerous for them as for the enemy. Inside the flagship, an urgent report arrived. Several ships had attempted to jump to a higher orbit without permission and failed. Not violently. They were gently redirected, their paths corrected as if by unseen hands. No alarms screamed. No systems burned. The control was soft and complete. This broke something inside the fleet's command structure. The commander demanded a solution. A science officer suggested pulling the fleet back entirely, out of Earth's influence. The idea would have been unthinkable hours earlier. Now it sounded reasonable. Another officer argued that retreat would show weakness to the galaxy. The room filled with tension. For the first time, the fleet argued with itself. Earth sent no new messages. The silence was intentional. Humans understood that words were no longer needed. The situation spoke clearly on its own. Every second the fleet remained, its control weakened. The longer it stayed, the more fear grew inside its ranks. Finally, a partial retreat was ordered. Several ships were instructed to move farther from Earth, just beyond the controlled zone. The movement began slowly. Human systems allowed it, guiding the ships safely outward. The aliens felt relief mixed with shame. They were leaving without being defeated in battle, yet they felt defeated all the same. The Galactic Council reacted immediately. Emergency sessions were called. Messages flew across light years. A simple truth spread quickly. If the Galactic Fleet could be unsettled, then no power was absolute. Fear-based rule was fragile. The balance of the galaxy trembled. On Earth, people watched the ships pull back. There were no cheers, no songs, no victory speeches. Humans had not sought to win. They had sought to survive without becoming what they feared. The panic of the fleet was proof that their approach had worked. Inside the flagship, the commander stared at the planet one last time before the fleet stabilized at a safer distance. He felt something he had not felt in centuries of conquest. Doubt. Earth had not defeated him with force. It had done something far worse. It had made him afraid to act. The alien fleet held its new position at a cautious distance from Earth, no longer pressing forward, no longer certain of its power. Silence filled the space between planet and ships, heavy and watchful. Both sides observed each other, but the nature of that observation had changed. The aliens now watched Earth the way explorers watch an unknown storm, careful and unsure. Inside the Galactic Council chambers, debate reached a level not seen in centuries. The fleet's hesitation had shaken old beliefs. Many council members demanded answers, not just from the commander, but from history itself. Ancient records were reopened fully this time. Not summaries. Not warnings buried in footnotes. Full archives. And in those deep files, a pattern began to appear. Long before Earth had joined galactic awareness, there were mentions of a strange species on the outer edges of explored space. A species that survived events others did not. A species that avoided empires and refused alliances. They were not marked as enemies, but as variables. Their name appeared rarely, often followed by missing data. The council translators worked carefully, reconstructing damaged records. A realization spread slowly, like cold through stone. The alien fleet commander received the updated archive report. As he read, his posture changed. The data described worlds that had collapsed under fear, and others that had fallen to force. But there were also brief entries about worlds that did neither. Worlds that resisted without rebellion. Worlds that adapted instead of attacking. The description matched Earth too closely to ignore. On Earth, leaders and scientists prepared a message. Not a threat. Not a demand. A clarification. They knew the time for silence had passed. Confusion was dangerous now. The message was sent calmly, using open channels, translated clearly. "You came expecting fear," the human speaker said. "You did not find it because fear is not how we survive." The message continued, explaining what the aliens had misunderstood. Humans had not built their systems to fight the galaxy. They had built them to protect themselves from chaos, including their own. Space control, energy management, and network stability had been created for disaster prevention, not war. The alien fleet had simply entered a protected zone. The Galactic Council listened in stunned silence. This was not arrogance. It was explanation. The humans spoke as if addressing equals, not conquerors or victims. They did not boast. They did not hide. They shared information freely, knowing that understanding reduced conflict. Then came the most shocking part. The human speaker revealed a name, one not spoken aloud on Earth often. A classification used only in old deep space research. It matched the damaged entries in the galactic archives. Humans were not new to the galaxy's awareness. They had been noted before, long ago, under a different description. Not as warriors. Not as rulers. As stabilizers. The council reacted instantly. Some members denied the claim. Others cross-checked the data and found the matches. The pattern was undeniable. Wherever these stabilizers appeared, large-scale collapse slowed. Empires lost their grip. Fear-based systems failed quietly. History bent without obvious cause. The alien fleet commander felt a heavy truth settle in his mind. Earth had not hidden its strength. The galaxy had simply failed to understand it. Power that did not seek attention was easy to overlook. Power that did not demand fear was difficult to measure. On Earth, the message ended with a simple statement. "We stayed quiet because the galaxy was not ready. We are still not sure it is." There was no threat in the words, only caution. Humans had learned that stepping forward too soon often created enemies before understanding could grow. The Galactic Council broke into urgent discussion. The idea that fear was not the strongest tool challenged everything they had built. Entire empires depended on fear to function. If humans truly represented another path, then the balance of the galaxy would change, whether anyone wanted it or not. The fleet commander requested permission to open direct dialogue with Earth. This alone marked a historic shift. The Galactic Fleet did not ask. It commanded. Now it asked. The Council approved, reluctantly and nervously. On Earth, the request was received without celebration. Humans understood the weight of this moment. Dialogue meant responsibility. It meant stepping into the wider galaxy at last. Scientists, diplomats, and thinkers prepared together, sharing roles without competition. As the first direct channel opened, Both sides felt the same quiet realization. The invasion had already failed, not because Earth was stronger in weapons, but because it had revealed a truth the galaxy was not ready to face. Fear was not universal. And without fear, empires built on it could not stand. The communication channel between Earth and the alien fleet opened slowly, a thread of light and sound connecting two very different worlds. The fleet commander stared at the image of the human speaker on the screens. There was no weapon drawn, no threatening posture, no demand for surrender. Only calm, clear eyes and a voice that spoke for an entire planet. The tone was not arrogant, but it carried quiet authority. The choice was about to be revealed, and both sides felt the weight of it. The human speaker began without hesitation. "We know why you came," they said. "You expected fear. You expected chaos. You expected surrender. But none of that exists here. You must understand, we do not fight blindly. We do not obey panic. We survive because we control ourselves first." The alien commander listened carefully, feeling the meaning settle. These words were not a challenge. They were a declaration. A statement of principle. The human continued, "We give you a choice. You may leave our system and never return. Or, you may remain, but only under our observation, learning from us instead of attempting to dominate. There will be no violence unless it is returned. The choice is yours." The silence that followed was heavy and uncomfortable. Officers glanced at one another, trying to read expressions. Commanders debated in whispers. This was unprecedented. The fleet had never been offered mercy by worlds it expected to conquer. A junior officer whispered, "Why would they offer this? Why not strike while we are exposed?" Another replied, "Perhaps they do not need to. Perhaps they already control the situation." The commander did not respond. He stared at the human face, realizing the truth. This was power in its purest form. Control without violence. Influence without force. He felt something new in centuries of conquest: uncertainty. Across the fleet, systems continued to report delays and subtle shifts. Ships moved smoothly but not freely, guided by forces they could not see. It was not overt control, but manipulation of the environment. Even the smallest correction felt purposeful. The humans had already acted before the fleet realized what was happening. Their offer of choice was the final part of a larger strategy the aliens barely understood. The Council of Alien Officers debated fiercely. Some argued for retreat. "Accept the offer," one said. "We cannot risk more." Others argued for compliance under observation. "If we stay, we learn. We may still win." The commander listened to both sides and felt frustration rise. Both options carried risk, but staying meant accepting a world that did not follow expected rules. Leaving meant admitting weakness. Both were dangerous. On Earth, humans did not push. They waited patiently for a response, understanding that true power often lay in stillness. They had studied countless species and understood the patterns. Empires built on fear collapsed when that fear failed. Now they watched the fleet make its decision, letting the aliens face themselves. The lesson was clear: control without understanding is always fragile. The first sign of agreement came slowly. Some ships shifted slightly outward, signaling withdrawal. Others remained, signaling compliance with Earth's observation. The commander ordered partial retreat, leaving a smaller fleet to remain under careful monitoring. This compromise unsettled even the most seasoned officers. They were neither fully gone nor fully in control. They were trapped in uncertainty. The humans addressed this choice again, clearly and calmly. "The decision is yours," the speaker said. "We will not force you, and we will not threaten you. Choose wisely. Your future in this system depends on it." The words carried weight beyond their meaning. They were both a warning and an opportunity. The aliens understood instinctively that any wrong choice would carry consequences far greater than a simple battle. As the fleet deliberated, a small alien commander moved forward and spoke. We will stay under your observation. We will learn." The room went quiet. The words were careful, hesitant, but sincere. Across the fleet, other ships transmitted agreement in similar fashion. Earth did not react immediately. They allowed the choice to settle, letting the aliens feel the magnitude of their decision. The human speaker concluded, "Then let this be the beginning of understanding, not conquest. We welcome your presence, but only under our rules. Learn well, or leave. The consequences are simple, but absolute." The statement was final. There was no room for misinterpretation. Power had been shown without a single weapon fired. Fear had been removed from the equation entirely. The fleet commander sat back, a rare quiet settling over him. For the first time in centuries, he understood that victory was not always measured by destruction. He had been offered mercy, guidance, and the chance to learn. Yet he knew the choice carried unseen risks. Humans did not play by the rules of fear, and that uncertainty was more dangerous than any weapon. On Earth, people returned to their routines quietly. Scientists analyzed data. Engineers monitored systems. The population understood the moment had passed, but its lessons remained. They had faced an empire without fighting. They had offered mercy without weakness. They had taken control without force. The galaxy would not forget this, and neither would the fleet. The alien fleet remained in orbit under careful observation. Some ships pulled back slightly. Some remained in restricted zones, monitored by Earth systems. Communication continued, steady and cautious. The choice had been made, but the implications stretched far into the future. Every decision now carried the weight of lessons learned in this first encounter. The humans had done something extraordinary. They had removed fear from the equation. They had shown mercy and authority simultaneously. They had given a choice, but in doing so, they had reminded the galaxy that true power was not weapons or numbers. It was understanding, patience, and the ability to survive without surrendering to panic. The fleet commander studied the calm planet below, realizing that the humans had already won in ways his models could not measure. He understood that this encounter was not a failure, but a lesson, one he would carry as long as he commanded. The choice had been made, but its consequences would ripple across the galaxy for centuries. The galaxy began to shift quietly, almost imperceptibly, as news of Earth's encounter with the alien fleet spread. Other species, observing from distant worlds, noticed how the mighty fleet had paused, hesitated, and ultimately accepted the human choice. Rumors traveled fast through networks, colonies, and trade routes. A single truth echoed across systems. Fear was no longer universal, and a new power had emerged, one that the galaxy had never seen before. Galactic leaders held emergency meetings. Empires built on intimidation suddenly seemed fragile. Advisors debated in hushed tones about the humans, speaking their names with cautious respect. The reports were consistent. A minor world had stood against a major fleet without striking, without showing panic, and without surrendering. This was unprecedented. The old ways of domination were no longer reliable. Power had changed its form. Back on Earth, scientists and diplomats watched the unfolding galactic response with careful attention. They understood that the story of the first encounter would shape every interaction for decades to come. Humans did not need to intervene. Their calm and measured actions had already begun to alter perceptions across the stars. The new order did not require conquest. It required only observation and presence. The alien fleet, still under Earth's careful watch, became an unexpected example to other civilizations. Where fear had once been the key to obedience, now restraint and understanding were the instruments of influence. The fleet's partial retreat demonstrated that might alone was not enough. Other species began to reconsider the value of intimidation and violence. Diplomacy, patience, and careful planning gained newfound importance. As these shifts took root, minor alliances began to realign. Worlds that had been oppressed or threatened by the old powers saw hope. Quiet resistance movements gained confidence. They realized that humans had not destroyed the fleet, yet they had won. They had survived and imposed rules on a force far greater than themselves without shedding blood. This example inspired change. Small systems started building networks of communication and defense, not for war, but for stability. Earth continued to operate as normal, outwardly calm but internally aware of the galaxy's gaze. Scientists expanded their monitoring systems to watch distant fleets and colonies. Diplomats began preparing channels of dialogue with species previously considered rivals. The lesson of the first encounter had been clear. Influence now depended on trust, observation, and measured action rather than fear and conquest. In distant corners of space, the Galactic Council discussed what had happened at length. Members who had underestimated humanity now faced a sobering realization. The humans were not aggressive, yet they wielded authority more effectively than many empires. Power that did not rely on destruction became the new standard. Some council members began to draft proposals to engage humans diplomatically rather than militarily. Old strategies of intimidation were considered obsolete. The humans' approach spread subtly through the galaxy. Merchants, explorers, and emissaries carried stories of the calm planet that had controlled a fleet without a fight. New alliances formed based on mutual benefit rather than fear. Technology sharing, trade agreements, and scientific collaborations gained more prominence. Military buildup remained, but now balanced by understanding and negotiation. The galaxy was learning that survival required more than strength. It required wisdom and foresight. Back on Earth, children grew up hearing about the encounter as history in the making. They learned that courage was not only in battle, but in patience, intelligence, and composure. Leaders emphasized that the galaxy's respect was earned not by destruction, but by discipline and clarity of purpose. Humans began to see themselves differently too. They were small in size compared to the vastness of space, yet their influence was undeniable. The alien fleet itself underwent change. Officers became cautious in every decision, mindful of the lessons learned from a single planet. Protocols were rewritten. Future encounters with unknown civilizations now included careful observation and restraint as part of standard procedure. Fear of the unknown had been replaced by respect for capability and strategy, qualities the humans had demonstrated effortlessly. In time, other species began to approach Earth not with weapons or threats, but with proposals, questions, and requests for guidance. They sought knowledge of how a planet had survived and influenced a fleet without destruction. Humans offered lessons, frameworks, and principles, not as rulers, but as teachers of discipline and strategy. The galaxy's power structures evolved quietly, subtly, and inexorably. The story of the first encounter spread not through propaganda, but through example. The lesson was simple: fear could no longer dominate. Strength alone was insufficient. Authority could be exercised through calm, calculation, and restraint. Humanity had rewritten the rules without striking a blow, without taking a single life, yet its influence reached every corner of known space. By the time the alien fleet withdrew completely from Earth's immediate control zone, the new order was already forming. Old empires re-evaluated their methods. New alliances valued trust over fear. Diplomacy replaced intimidation as the preferred tool. The humans watched quietly, allowing the galaxy to adjust, guiding it without interference. Their presence alone was enough to shape behavior, demonstrating that true power was not in weapons or warships, but in the ability to survive, observe, and command respect without force. The galaxy was different now. The lesson of the humans had spread through fleets, colonies, and council chambers alike. Fear no longer ruled as the ultimate motivator. Patience, discipline, and intelligence had taken its place. Earth remained calm and unassuming, yet its influence stretched farther than any fleet or empire. A new galactic order had been born, one that would endure not through destruction, but through the quiet, unyielding example of humanity. The story of Earth's encounter with the galactic fleet reached its quiet, final chapter, yet the truth behind the humans' laughter remained the most powerful lesson of all. From orbit, the fleet could not understand it at first. They had expected fear, panic, chaos, and surrender. They had prepared to strike, to dominate, to demonstrate superiority. Yet instead of screams or desperate movements, the humans had stood calmly, observing, analyzing, and finally laughing. It was not mockery, and it was not arrogance. It was understanding. The laughter began simply, almost instinctively. Humans had faced countless threats, from natural disasters to war, from disease to artificial intelligence gone wrong. Fear had visited them often, yet it had never succeeded in stopping them. Over generations, they had learned that panic was an enemy as deadly as any invader. By the time the galactic fleet arrived, humans had already endured worse. The universe had tested them, and they had survived. Laughter, then, was not a reaction to the fleet, it was a reaction to fear itself. When the first ship appeared in the sky, blocking the sun and casting long shadows over cities, humans paused. They looked up. They understood that these beings expected submission. They expected terror. And yet, they had faced overwhelming odds before and emerged alive. Their history was full of endings that never arrived, and victories that came quietly through patience and perseverance. In that knowledge lay their strength. Children pointed at the massive ships and laughed. Adults recorded videos, sharing jokes about shapes and lights and the absurdity of panic. Scientists explained calmly to the public what the ships could and could not do. Leaders coordinated quietly, without shouting or forcing action. Humanity had learned to manage fear long before this moment. When fear arrived, it did not find purchase. Instead, it was met with awareness, humor, and measured observation. The aliens tried to understand this. Their psychology programs ran calculations, simulations, and models. Every algorithm concluded the same impossibility: humans should be afraid. Yet humans were not. Humans had no central leader to coordinate panic. They had no single trigger to collapse. Their strength lay not in weapons or numbers, but in their experience and discipline. They knew fear, they understood it, and they refused to surrender to it. As the fleet commander watched, humans acted in ways that defied every expectation. Warning energy pulses meant to intimidate were noted, analyzed, and ignored. Strategic satellite movements adjusted in real time to monitor and manage potential threats. Not a single act of aggression occurred. The aliens realized slowly that the humans had already won, not by destroying, not by resisting violently, but by being prepared, calm, and unshakable. The laughter was a signal, a declaration of awareness. It said, "We know fear. We have survived worse. You cannot intimidate us with what we have already mastered." Every chuckle, every smirk, every quiet smile carried centuries of human experience. It carried lessons learned from a history of near disasters. It carried the knowledge that panic is never a tool of the wise. The Galactic fleet had arrived expecting screams and instead received a mirror of their own uncertainty. Humans had also understood timing. The fleet's arrival was dramatic, meant to shock, yet the humans had already built systems of observation, calculation, and adjustment. They did not react immediately with force because they had learned that premature action leads to mistakes. They waited. They watched. They assessed. When they laughed, it was after careful consideration, not impulse. The laughter was strategic, a way to mark control over themselves before acting against external threats. Even the Galactic Council struggled to comprehend the lesson. Species that relied on intimidation were suddenly faced with evidence that fear was not universal. A species that could survive and thrive without panic was unpredictable and dangerous in a way the galaxy had never accounted for. The humans had rewritten the rules of interaction without firing a shot. Their laughter was a warning, not of violence, but of understanding and experience beyond comprehension. On Earth, the laughter continued subtly. People returned to their routines, to teaching, research, and observation. They had not celebrated in triumph because no battle had been fought. The laughter was quiet, woven into daily life. It was a reminder to themselves and a signal to the galaxy. Fear had no dominion here. Understanding did. Patience did. Discipline did. And above all, humans had learned to survive without surrendering to panic. The fleet remained at a distance, under observation, constrained by invisible limits it could neither comprehend nor remove. Each ship's officer felt unease, a small but persistent doubt. Humans had given them a choice, demonstrated restraint, and yet imposed rules far more powerful than any weapon. The laughter echoed in their systems not as sound, but as concept, a species that could see through fear and act without it was impossible to control. Finally, the truth settled in for all observers. Humans laughed because they were ready. They had endured the worst that the universe could throw at them before. They had faced their own failures and survived. They had built a world where control came from awareness and preparation rather than force. Their laughter was neither mockery nor joy. It was clarity, and it was the most powerful declaration the galaxy had ever witnessed. And so the humans remained, calm under the shadow of the Galactic fleet, laughing not at the ships above them, but at the very idea that fear could ever dominate them. They had survived themselves, they had survived history, and now they had survived the galaxy's greatest test without striking a blow. The lesson was simple but absolute. Fear could not rule them, and in that refusal, humanity had won the first, most important battle of all.